Hello there, and welcome. So today I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about group work. Now, the bulk of my career I taught high school age students, and there is no group more perfectly oriented toward group work than teenagers. Even if they've grown about it, the truth is teenagers are interested in each other, not teachers. Now, obviously there are exceptions to this. There are exceptions to all sorts of things. But generally speaking, teenagers are at a developmental stage where they want to spend time together socially. And group work allows that natural instinct to be expressed in a productive way. So once you've got the kids oriented toward the group work, formed the groups, they've done their project, they need to be evaluated. And part of what I talked about was I gave them grade sheets where they graded each other, and there were rules about how they could grade each other. And if they didn't follow those rules, then their vote for who got what grade did not count. They still got a grade, but their input didn't count. So if they wanted their input to count, they had to do it in a rule-bound fashion. Now, how do you evaluate the groups? Well, one way, obviously, is for you to just form a grading rubric and grade them yourselves. That's probably the easiest way, but it may not be the most productive way, and it might short-circuit something that would be lots of fun for them and for you, and that is for you to sit down and for them to tally up their marks for their work on their project. Now, I've had students evaluate other students' projects, and I've had other teachers evaluate students' projects, and both of those work beautifully. Seniors evaluating freshman group work, they love it. They're excited about it. Teachers coming down and evaluating student work, it's a good way for you to do some team building too, to ask them to come down and just fill out who they think is first. They don't have to put comments or anything. Then, when the evaluation is in, when the scoring of their project is in, they can tally up the scores and figure out which group got first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Now, I always had no more than 5 groups because I knew the top group, the group that scored the top number of points was going to get a 10 out of 10. The first place group, every member of the group got a 10 out of 10 for their group grade. And second, 9, third, 8, fourth, 7, and fifth, 6. What this meant was that on this activity, on a book they've read, they could not fail as long as something was turned in. The group as a whole was going to pass no matter what. Now, occasionally I did have things where I allowed it to be a little higher than that, like a 10, a 9, and 2 8s and a 7, something like that. That kind of works out in the tallying. You'll see it if you try to do it. But if the kids actually get up and do the tallying, in other words, they take their score sheets and they figure out who won and everything, in the process of doing that, you should encourage them to discuss what worked well, what they found, and in doing so, it is actually fun for them to discuss a book even if they haven't read it. Now, you might say, well, what's the good of just reading sentences from a book? What's just from passages from a book? Well, my first answer would be the Bible. Let's think about that. But I'll give you an example from my Huckleberry Finn group work. There's a callback in Huckleberry Finn for those of you that haven't read it recently or haven't read it at all. In the beginning of the book, Huckleberry is being educated by a little old lady who's driving him crazy and suppressing him and bullying him and making him feel terrible. And he says, in a flippant and kidding way, "I wish I was in hell." And she, of course, is shocked to her foundation about that. But later on in the book, Huck faces a real quandary. He has been traveling with Jim, an escaped slave. Jim has broken the law by escaping slavery. That's against the law for Jim to do that. And Huck has been raised in an environment that says that him helping Jim get away is a sin and a crime, and he could be punished eternally for it. The problem is, Jim is the only adult who has expressed to Huckleberry the love and friendship and protection and consideration that good family members do. So Huck is torn on that dilemma. So he writes down this idea that he is not going to turn Jim in, even though he thinks it's going to put his eternal soul at risk. And he says, I guess I'll go to hell then. So the first time we read it in the book, it's flippant and funny. And the second time we read it in the book, it is full of pathos and beauty. When you see those things happen, when students discuss just 2 sentences from a book, and you realize that the book is really presenting them with the puzzle of our lives, how we condemn or cooperate, how we love or hate, how we respond to the way we're treated. If you have students discussing that in a class, the book has done its job, even if the students haven't read it all the way through. And there's value in that. There's value in them learning to appreciate each other's efforts. There's value in them seeing how a book can become a sort of cultural coin in the room, so that when you talk about different characters and they understand what the implications are, even if they haven't read the book, it's really actually a delightful experience. Now, you can approach the testing of the book knowledge depending upon your spirit and your will and your class in different ways. For example, you could give them the reading test before they do the group work, and they'll realize why they failed the reading test. Or you can give them the reading test, the individual reading test, after they've completed the group work and had these classroom discussions and had this book in their mind for a week. 1 hour a day, every day, looking at it, studying it, thinking about it, putting up art about it. I guarantee the grades will be better if you give the reading test after the group work. And the students will feel excited about their knowledge. And after all, the grade is not the most important thing they're going to take from your class. The most important things they're going to take from your class are skills, knowledge, and of course, experience. All of the other things that come along with that, grades and reputation, those are adjunct to it, beside it. The real thing, experience, knowledge, and skill, the real that they carry from the room, is the thing that will enrich their lives. And they deserve to have their lives rich because they are, like you, sacred. Their lives are sacred. Even the most horrible, misbehaving, snotty, hateful child is still a child of God. So, try group work. And remember, since you're El Jefe, the boss, your decisions are final. And that allows them to learn that you are going to try to be just no matter what. So if somebody gets a higher score than you think they really deserve, you make peace with that. And if you think they've been marked too low and need a little higher score than they've been offered from others, you can affect that too. That's it for today. I hope you have a glorious rest of the day. And I hope you see me soon, you gorgeous people.